How many of you remember which houses are aspected by all planets? What is the house that all planets aspect? Seventh house. And do you remember why? Because seventh is the house of desire. And seventh house from any planet is the house of desire of that planet. It shows the desire of that planet. And aspect or graha drishti basically means you have an eye on something. You basically desire it. So, the seventh house from every planet, naturally that planet has a desire on that house. So, if for example the seventh house from a planet is, let's say, the house that shows your career, then that planet has some desire related to your career. Whatever that planet's inherent nature is, and whatever houses that planet owns, based on those, it will want to do certain things to your career. It may be giving a big break, giving fortune, making you a manager, or it may be giving a layoff. It can be bad or good, depending on the nature of the planet and depending on the role the planet has in your horoscope. But any planet that has graha drishti on the 10th house in your chart, that planet has some desire to play a role in your career. And when that desire will happen, when that desire will fructify, that depends on the dashas. Each person's life is divided into various dashas, antardashas, pratyantar dashas and so on. Phases, sub-phases, sub-sub-phases and so on. So based on the phases, sub-phases in the life, you can identify when a particular planet's desire is fulfilled. A good desire or bad desire. When it is fulfilled, you time it using dashas. But for now, let's not go into dashas. Let's just look at the various houses and see what is going on. When it happens, we'll see later.
One question from last class.
Yes?
We had actually a question from previous class. We have friends and friends, neutral and enemy.
Right.
But all the planets are not listed in that, or at least Rahu and Ketu are not listed. You get something about it.
Yeah, Rahu and Ketu are not listed. And some people take Rahu to have the same relationships as Saturn and Ketu just the way Mars is. That is how some people take it. And some people just use Saturn's relations to both Rahu and Ketu also. There is no clear opinion on that. Yes?
While calculating the Mitra for Rama's Kundali,
Yeah?
last time you asked us to do homework.
Homework, yes.
Yes. Rahu came next to as a temporary relation to Saturn. So I should count the permanent relation as 1 or 0 for Rahu. With respect to Saturn.
With respect to Saturn for who?
Rahu.
Okay.
I gave 1 plus 1.
Rahu and Shani are always friends.
Okay. So it should be permanent relation is 1 also.
Permanent relation is 1. If you read the Ashtottara Satanama Stotram of Rahu and Ketu, for both of them it says Mandasaka are basically friend of Shani.
Okay.
So both of them are good friends of Shani. Both the nodes.
Then Ketu in that case, because Rahu and Ketu with Saturn were not marked any permanent relationship here.
Pardon?
Maybe 1 1.
So should there be 1 for permanent relationship?
Yes.
Permanent.
Yes. Basically what I am saying is, for Rahu Ketu, there are no clear opinions given in Shastras. So some people take, there is a dictum in the classics called Shanivad Rahu and Kujavad Ketu, which means Saturn is like Rahu and Ketu is like Mars. And one of the reasons for saying it is, one of the houses of Saturn is co-owned by Rahu and one of the houses of Mars is co-owned by Ketu. So usually people associate Ketu with Mars and Shani, Rahu with Shani. This is also like if you look at the colors, the 7 primary colors that make up the white color, these are basically represented by the 7 planets. And Rahu and Shani represents the blue color and Mars represents the red color. That is why some old astrologers, they wear red color clothes on Tuesday, blue color clothes on Saturday and so on. They color code their clothes. For example, for Jupiter it is the yellow color, the auspicious yellow color. So in any case, the blue color is Saturn's and the red color is Mars's, and Rahu and Ketu are invisible. So Rahu basically represents ultraviolet, which is above blue. And then below red, you have infrared. That is represented by Ketu. So ultraviolet and infrared are Rahu and Ketu's colors. So, yeah, 1 second, I am coming to that. So, one interpretation of the dictum is, Ketu acts like Mars, Saturn, Rahu acts like Saturn, But that is in a general way, not with relation to mitras, not relation to relationships. That is some people's opinion, and that is actually what I also use. So what I suggest is, for say Rahu and Ketu, for both of them, use whatever you have for Shani. Whoever is Shani's friend, it is Rahu and Ketu's friend also. Whoever is Shani's enemy, that is Rahu and Ketu's also enemy. And as far as Shani is concerned, he is a very good friend of both of them, both Rahu and Ketu. And of course, Rahu and Ketu are friends of each other too. But they are friends who can never meet.
But in Saturn, referencing from Saturn,
Yeah.
on the Sridhama chart,
Yeah.
we have Rahu. If we are going to take it along with the Mars, Mars is an enemy, so you put a -1 sign.
For who?
For Mars from Saturn.
Okay.
Referencing from Saturn, Mars is -1,
Why Mars is -1? Because he is an enemy, okay?
right? Then if I take Ketu same as Mars,
Yeah.
then I put a -1 for him also.
Yes. But if you take Ketu as equivalent of Shani instead of Mars, like I was saying just now, then he will be a +1.
Okay. So in which case, how should we consider?
Like I said, there is a controversy, and if you want my opinion, you always take the same table that is for Saturn, for Rahu and Ketu also.
Okay.
Whoever is Shani's friend, he is Rahu and Ketu's friend. Whoever is Shani's enemy, he is Rahu and Ketu's enemy. Whoever is Shani's Sama, he is Rahu and Ketu's Sama. That is a good way to take. Yeah.
All the gods and goddesses, do they have a horoscope like this?
Yes. It is, Sri Rama's horoscope is given in the classics.
Okay, Sri Rama was born as a human being, so he may be having.
Yes.
But
Yes. If you
Shiva,
look at
Vishnu and all, they not have
My
a,
question to
Lord Narasimha has a horoscope. These horoscopes are given in the classics. And when Sun is born, he was born on a particular Tithi.
Yeah.
And Tithi is defined based on Sun's position, Sun and Moon's position. But if you look at, for example, when you do Satyanarayana Vratam,
Yeah.
while we are talking about that, I'll forget it, so I'll just mention this. Every Purnima day, every full moon day, we do Satyanarayana Vratam at my home. And this Wednesday evening from 7 to 9:30 or 9:45, we'll be doing that at our house, which is in Crafton. If any of you are interested in attending the puja, you are most welcome to. There is no obligation, but if you are interested in attending, you are most welcome. It is on Wednesday, this Wednesday in 2 days, at 7 o'clock in the evening. And if you are interested, please send a mail to pvr@charter.net. Or you can tell me right now also, if you are interested in attending the Satyanarayana Vratam on Wednesday. Okay, now, how did we come here?
for gods, what is the...
Saturn,
Yeah, when you do Satyanarayana Vratam,
Yeah.
when you read the slokas,
Yeah.
the mantras for all the planets, even for Saturn, the sun and moon, the tithi is given, the nakshatram is given, everything is given. And if you look at Parashara's classic, there is a classic called, I mentioned it several times, Brahat Parashara Svarashastram, that is the Bible of astrology, Bible of Jyotish. And in that book, in a chapter called Rajyogas, he mentioned about Rajyoga, and then he mentioned about grades of Rajyoga. He said, I don't know how many of you remember, but I said that quadrant lord and trine lord being together, are aspecting each other, are exchanging houses. That is called Rajyoga. That is a Rajyoga. Because quadrants are Vishnu sthanas and trines are Lakshmi sthanas. And when the last of those two join together, they have a relationship that is basically like Lakshmi and Narayana getting together in your chart, joining in your chart. And that is a Rajyoga that produces immense prosperity. But the thing is, so many people have that Rajyoga, that kind of Rajyoga. But not everybody has the same results. Some people are maybe, they are reasonably wealthy, some people are very wealthy, some people become kings, some people become emperors. So there is a grading. So in that chapter, Parashara talked about the gradings of the Rajyogas. And in that chapter, he said, if those planets giving Rajyoga are in so-and-so Amsa, it will be a normal king. In so-and-so Amsa, it will be an emperor. In so-and-so Amsa, he will be an emperor who rules the entire earth. And he said, Dharmaraja, after present Yoga, has this in his horoscope, has such a Rajyoga. And in future, a king called Salvahana will be born with the same yoga. So he made a prediction in that book. And then he went on to say, even higher than that, if the planets giving Rajoga are in a higher Amsha than even that Amsha which Dharmaraja had, then he said it will be Vishnu's avataras like Rama and Krishna. And then he said even higher, then it will be Brahma himself. So he even gave the horoscope a consideration in the horoscope of even Brahma. So to answer your question whether gods have a horoscope, gods do have a horoscope, but again, when you construct this horoscope, where to put sun and moon? Is it based on the same planets that we see? Or is it based on something else? We don't really understand. The way to make horoscope that we understand applies to people who are born on earth. But the thing is, sun and moon are not just those bodies, those physical planets which are moving around the sun. That is only one aspect of it. There may be a much bigger aspect of sun and moon. Like I said, sun is nothing but the soul of Paramatma. Moon is nothing but the mind of Paramatma. Those two are the eyes of Paramatma. And then Mars is nothing but the aggression, the spirit of, the aggressive spirit or initiative, boldness of Paramatma, of Narayana. And Jupiter is nothing but the intelligence of Paramatma, the Dhishakti of Narayana. Narayana means the whole universe. Of this Paramapurusha, for the Paramapurusha, he is the Dhishakti. Venus is the spirit of happiness, enjoyment of the Paramapurusha. Like that, these planets are defined. When you take that big, the holistic definition of the planets, they are no longer these small planets, these small bodies that we can physically see in the sky. These may be one aspect of them which control our lives. There may be a bigger aspect. So, though it may sound counterintuitive when I say that Brahma also has a horoscope, we basically have to realize that there are things that we don't understand. Our realm of thinking, the realm of our imagination and thinking and perception is very limited to our current existence in this life. So let's not bother about it, but let's assume that everybody has a horoscope, including Brahma, except for perhaps the Paramapurusha, the Narayana, or some people may call him Sadasiva, whatever, some people call him Virat Purusha, whatever you call him, some people just don't call him, they call it, some people say Brahman. So whatever you call that supreme being may not have a horoscope. But every other being that is created, including Brahma, has a horoscope. Now, let's go back to the question. So what was the question? The question was, do gods have horoscope? Is there a follow-up or did I answer you? You asked, yeah.
No, that's the same question what you, because to me, maybe it may not be relevant to the last, but I thought I will express it myself.
Yeah.
There should be maybe some other universe like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
It's beyond what we consider the 9 planets.
Yeah.
That universe.
These are one aspect. It's basically not another universe, but an extension of the same universe. This is a bigger manifestation of the universe. What we see is a smaller manifestation.
At one point, when we do a Graha Shanti, we pray to the gods.
Yeah.
And we are contemplating the same thing in a way that gods also have a horoscope.
Yeah.
Which is preceded by the.
And they also pray. Rama, for example, prayed to Shiva. After winning the war in Lanka, he had certain doshas in his own horoscope. He had to pray to Shiva to have happiness with wife. Otherwise, in his horoscope, we'll see the horoscope later, but there are indications of separation from wife. And he had to pray to Shiva for shanti of that, as well as for being a king. He had to pray to Shiva. So he was at Rameshwaram, he worshipped Shiva. So even, for example, Krishna worshipped Somnath. Pardon me? No, this was after he was separated. When you mean again? Yes.
So that's actually, we are actually not the conclusion of the avatar.
Right.
Yeah.
The planets also have horoscope, like we do have places, like for India you have horoscope, and this you have horoscope.
Yeah.
Similarly for planets also you have horoscope.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned some time back. When you do Satyanarayana Vratam, the whole horoscope is not given, but certain aspects of the horoscope are given. The tithi and the nakshatram, when a planet was born, that is given in the Shastras. When you do Satyanarayana Vratam and when you do prayer to each planet, they have a gotra and they have a tithi of birth, they have a nakshatra of birth, so they also have a horoscope.
Good question.
The other class you were mentioning about that Bhava, it's on the same Bhava and Rasi
Yeah.
also the same. But in Dr. Raman's notable horoscope,
Yeah.
he many times he specifies that this planet, the Bhava is.
Yeah, that is simply his view, and it is not supported by Parasara.
Oh, okay.
That is the view of so many astrologers, but it's not supported by Parasara at all. It's a later view that came to Indian astrology through Greek astrology. So his question was, for those of you who didn't understand, we said this is the Rashi Chakra, this is Aries, this is Taurus, this is Gemini, and so on. We have the 12 Rashis. And let's say somebody has his Lagna at the end of this Rashi. In the 20, each Rashi has 30 degrees, right? Suppose Lagna is at the 28th degree of this. So what I said in the other class is, when you find houses, irrespective of where Lagna is, as long as it is in this Rashi, this entire Rashi qualifies as the first house. And this Rashi qualifies as the second house. And this Rashi as the third house, and so on. If a particular planet is in this Rashi, for example Venus, we say that he is in the third house, 1, 2, 3. But some people, what they consider is, they look at the degree of the planet. So let's say Venus is at the beginning of this Rashi. Let's say he is at 1 degree of that Rashi. Now what they do is, the first house is not this whole Rashi, but they go back from this point, they go back 15 degrees and forward by 15 degrees. So they call this the first Rashi, first Bhava or first house. So first house spans across 2 Rashis. It has a length of 30 degrees, but it is not in one Rashi. So wherever the Lagna is rising, that is the middle point of that house, and you go 30 degrees with that as the middle point. So 15 degrees back and 15 degrees forward. So that becomes your first house. And the second house becomes this remaining part and some part of this Rashi. So when you do that, this planet Venus, who is at the beginning of Cancer, he will basically, it will be tantamount to having him in the second house. So when you interpret the horoscope, some people say, oh, Venus is in the second house, he is not in the third house. So this is how some people do it. And actually, going one step further, what they do is, it's not actually 30 degrees for every house. They say some houses will be in 29 degrees, some will be 31 degrees. It keeps varying. And there are some complicated formulas for deciding it. And there are actually different ways to divide into houses. There are different formulas. And in Western astrology, there is a method called Porphyry method, Placidus method, Koch method. So there are so many different methods for dividing the zodiac into different houses. And in Indian astrology, the most popular is either, like I said, 30 degrees for each house, and then Sripati Padhati. There is a Padhati called Sripati Padhati, which is basically Porphyry method, the method of Porphyry. And this finds mention in later classics, books that came after the Greek astrology influenced Indian astrology, like basically books written in the last 1500 years or last 2000 years. But if you look at Parasara's book, which was written 5000 years back, whenever he talks about houses, he says count the Rasis, and thus you will know the houses. So he is talking about counting the Rasis. So irrespective of where a planet is, these Rasi borders are like clear room walls basically. If you want to see which room, first room, second room, third room, when you count, because I am at the end of the room, you don't start counting from the middle of the room to the middle of the next room. So this is what I was taught by my father as well as my other gurus. I consider 3 people as my gurus. My father, Sri PVR Rao, and then Dr. V.V. Raman, whose book you quoted, and then thirdly, Pandit Sanjay Rath, who is from a traditional parampara in Orissa. I consider all the 3 as my gurus, and out of these, 2 people basically taught me that each Rashi is a Bhava. We don't draw lines in between, in the middle of a Rashi. Only Dr. Raman considered the other option, but he did not say this is exactly what you have to do. Actually, he mentioned that there are different opinions in various books. He did not give a very, very firm opinion, crisp opinion on that. But there are places where he used that kind of approach. But my advice would be that is not logical. Parasara never. He has a voluminous book. He covers so many things, but he never mentioned that kind of house division. And as a matter of fact, whenever he talked about houses, he talked about counting signs. So, You should not do this. Basically, this whole Rasi becomes the first house, this whole Rasi becomes the second house, this whole Rasi becomes the third house, and so on.
But then if you subdivide like that, there will be question about who is the lord of that house too, right? Because
Yeah, what they do is, there is a concept called cusp, the middle point of the house. So depending on where the middle point is, they consider that planet as the lord of the house. So they have a consistent approach, but the only problem is, it does not have the sanction of Maharshis. It has the sanction of later authorities, but not Maharshis. And if you want to stick to what Maharshis thought, then the right thing to do would be to take each Rasi as a house.
So it depends which items are used, the calculation, is that the way?
If you use a different ayana, still that planet can be in the same house. But in some border cases, depending on the ayana you use, planet can come here or here. But that is a different issue. This issue is, like I said, if you want to see which room I am in, we just take this whole room, right? On the other hand, what some people do is, if I am standing on the border of other room, then they draw a line in the middle of this room to the middle of the next room, and they say, I am in that room. So that's basically the analogy.
In the moving of planets, but these are all fixed values, houses and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. The moving of planets won't affect anything.
No, it will not affect anything. Okay, this color is a bad color.
Actually, the sun maybe not.
Yeah, this color is, I will not use it. This is Shani's color. Do all of you know the colors that are allotted? Colors associated with different planets? Sun is associated with orange color. Basically different shades of red, including orange, and some people also include pink color to sun. So orange, pink and various shades of red. Those are sun's colors. And moon is associated with white color. And then Mars is blood red. Basically Raktavarna, that is the word in classics. So red, that is dark red, like blood. And then Mercury is green. Basically the green color of the grass and leaves. That is Mercury. And then Jupiter is yellow color. Then Venus is again white color. Svetambara, Svetavarna. And then Saturn is blue color.
black.
Actually Krishnavarna. So some people say black. Actually Neela is also there. If you look at his hints, there are both differences. So black and blue. Basically Rahu and Shani, they share black and blue. But when you say black, it's basically Shani, not Rahu. But when you say blue, it can be Shani or Rahu. So this is like Capricorn and Aquarius. The two houses, one is purely Shani house, the other is Shani and Rahu house. So black color is Shani and blue color is Shani and Rahu. And Ketu technically does not have a body. He does not want a body and he has no color. But some people associate the grey color with him. The grey color. Pardon me?
Not infrared.
He represents the infrared in the band, in the spectrum.
But no.
Yeah, but the colors that I mentioned just now, these are not the Vibja or the colors in the spectrum. That classification is different. And this is not that classification. These are just colors associated with that planet. If you want to see later, when we go to the chart that shows one's vehicle, for example, if you want to see what color is good for somebody, or if you want to guess what is the color of the car that somebody bought in a particular year, if you know this is somebody's second car, what will be the color if you want to guess it. For all those things, this will be useful. It doesn't mean that if somebody's Lagna is owned by Mercury, he will be green color. It doesn't mean that. Now, going back to the Grahadrishti, yes.
Last time we did,
Yeah.
there was the moon, you took moon Kona is Taurus.
Yes.
But in start taking you put it in Aries.
Aries? I made a mistake if I did that. It's definitely not Aries, it's Taurus.
But which are
Sun is Aries. No. Sun is Leo. Yeah, Mars is Aries, right? Sun's exaltation is Aries.
Yeah, Mars understood as
Mars, Sun is Leo.
for moon is
Moon ki
So I am writing again. This is Mula Trikona. Sun here, Moon here, Mars here, Mercury here, then who is Jupiter? Jupiter here, Venus here, Saturn here. And then for Rahu Ketu, it's not mentioned in the classic, but this is what some people take. This is Mula Trikona. And own houses, you know, right?
yeah.
Own houses are actually very easy to remember also. Basically, I said these houses are moons and these houses are suns. So they're shared with the planets. So, and they kept one house each. Moon kept this, sun kept this. So these two were given to Mercury by, this by moon and this by sun. And Mercury came first because he is closest to sun. And then Venus. Depending on the distance from sun, different planets guard. One planet guard these two, one planet guard these two, one planet guard these two, and so on. And these are Mars, because after Venus, Mars comes. And then Jupiter comes. And then the furthest away from Sun is Saturn. So these are own houses.
In Mula Trikona, in the table you gave for Rahu it is Virgo, for Ketu it is 5.
Yeah, that is also, that view is also there. Some people take Ketu and Rahu here. There are different views. See, for Rahu Ketu, exaltation, Mula Trikona, everything is controversial. Only their own house is established by Parashara, without any ambiguity. So I'll write the own houses here. Oh, I did write the own houses. Now Rahu and Ketu were left out. Rahu gets this as the one house, Ketu gets this as the one house. They basically share. They don't have a house of their own. They basically rent, or maybe lease, lease forever. And then these are the exaltation, Ucharatis.
Yeah.
So this is Sun, this is Saturn, this is Mars, this is Jupiter, this is Mercury, this is Venus, and this is Moon. These are the Ucharatis, also known in English as exaltation signs. So what, if you are completely new to astrology, what you should do is draw this somewhere on a paper and keep looking at it every few days, and then eventually you will remember it. Because when you see a chart, you should immediately know this planet is exalted, this planet is in one sign, this planet is in Mula Trikona. You should immediately know. And with a little bit of practice, it will come naturally. And the analogy I gave is, a planet in one house is like somebody who's relaxed at his own house. No pressures, no formalities, just relaxed in a natural state. So planet in one house is like, he's in his natural state. And the planet in Ucha is like a person who's at his favorite party, his or her favorite party. So the planet is excited. It is simply delighted to be there, not delighted. Excited is the right word, delighted is a bad word. Delight basically comes in one house. This is excitement. Really want to do something. That kind of the curious, hyper state basically. And then Mula Trikona is analogous to office. The planet in that house is very duty minded. So when we see the horoscopes later, when we see examples, we will know what is the difference. All the three are good, but there is a difference. There is a slight, subtle difference between all the three states. If all of you have written this down, we will move on to Grahadrashti. We did it last week, but we'll just refresh on it. Each planet aspects the seventh house, like I said, because seventh house from each planet is the desire of that planet, and Grahadrashti is nothing but what the planet wants to do, it's the desire. So from each planet, the seventh house is aspected. And then in addition, Does anybody remember the additional houses that Jupiter aspects?
5th and 9th.
5 and 9. He is basically the Dharma planet. So he aspects the Dharma Trikona. And then, who remembers Mars?
4th and 8th.
Yeah. Basically all the outer planets away from Earth, who are not inside Earth. If you look at Sun, if you look at the orbits, the planets which are away from Earth, those planets have special aspect. Mercury and Venus don't have a special aspect. So Mars is 4 and 8. Who remembers Saturn?
And 3rd and 10th.
3rd and 10.
Because they want to be close with Sun and Moon, that's why they...
I don't know the reason. I don't know. Just an observation. Actually, this is not actually accurate also. Mercury, Venus also have a special aspect. The thing is, according to the Shastras, the special aspects that I mentioned, this 5 and 9 aspect is not only Jupiter's. All planets have it. But the thing is, they don't have it fully. They have a fractional aspect. If you look at Parashara, he gave half, 3/4 and quarter aspect. So I'll mention it in a later class. For now, let's ignore. Otherwise, it will be confusing. But what he said is, on the 7th house, every planet has a complete drishti, which is basically 100% drishti. But on other houses, it has only 25% or 50% or 75% drishti. But the exceptions are, Jupiter has 100% drishti on these houses. Shani has 100% drishti on these 2 houses. So for these 3 planets, the special drishti is 100%. For other planets, it is partial. And I'm not sure of the reason. So this is something that we have to remember. And then we'll go to Rasi Drishti. There is, apart from this Graha Drishti, which is basically, it is based on the nature of the planet. Based on the nature of the planet, it has a certain desire. Intellect has certain desires. Mind has certain other desires. And the spirit of enjoyment has certain other desires. Spirit of hard work has another desire. So like that, each planet has different desires. But there is also a Drishti that is based on where you are. For example, if I live in South Glaston in a particular neighborhood, people who live nearby, I will meet them every now and then. So I have certain influence on them. So Rasi Drishti is basically another way of influencing. But this is not by desire, but by location, but by placement. So that aspect is based on whether a planet is Chararasi or Sthirarasi or Drisvabhava Rasi. So first I have to define that. If you look at the whole zodiac, the 12 Rasis, there is a classification that divides the 12 Rasis into 3 parts. Chara, Sthira, Drisvabhava. In English they are called movable, fixed and dual. So, the Chara Rasis are Chara, 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 Chara. These 4 houses, 1, 4, 7 and are Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn. In Sanskrita, these are Mesha, Karkataka, Tula, Makara. These 4 are Chara Rasis. And then the next Rasis are Sthira Rasis. Vrishabha or Taurus, Simha or Leo, Vrishchika or Scorpio, Aquarius or Kumbha. Okay.
Yes means
Sthira. So C is Chara or movable. S is Sthira or fixed. And one, I'll define the other one. Actually, why don't I do it right now? Others are D. D for dual or Dvisvabhava. D for Dvisvabhava. That means 2 nature. D means 2. Dual nature. They don't have a they don't have a particular nature. They are neither too movable nor too fixed. They are flexible basically. So this is the classification of the Rasis. And one use of this would be, for example, suppose you are deciding a muhurta, for example, for doing something. If you have a sthira lagna, a lagna or the rising sign, let's say is a sthira rasi, and let's say lagna lord is in a sthira rasi, and lot of planets, important planets in the muhurta chart, or let's say in sthira rasis. then that venture will be solid. It will be stable. Sthira is also basically stability because it means not moving. On the other hand, if you do something in a Chararasi, with a Chararasi as Lagna, with Lagna Lords in a Chararasi, and various important planets in the chart being in Chararasi, then what will happen is there will be some changes. Whatever you start at that time, it will not be permanent. There will be some other change. So Movable or Chararasis show a lot of changes, and Sthirarasis show stability, and then jewel signs, they are basically a mix of both. There is some stability, but at the same time it will not be very rigid. I can also translate Sthira as rigid, fixed and rigid, and Chara as very, very volatile. And then jewel is an ideal mix of the two. But again, depending on the kind of venture or kind of muhurta that you have, Chararasi may be more appropriate also. It depends. So it's not that Chararasis are always good, but if you are joining a job, especially in this kind of economy, Chararasi is a good Rasi to choose.
So marriage can put muhurta based on this.
Who?
Marriage, muhurta.
If you go to an astrologer, they will do like this. But the thing is, there are so many factors. This is only one factor. It also depends on, for example, you put Sthira Lagna, let's say you put Simha Lagna, and then let's say there is Mars in that Lagna. Mars is a planet of lot of change. It doesn't like stability. And then, let's say in your horoscope also, Mars shows lot of changes in career, let's say, suppose. And then if you put Mars in Lagna, even though it is a Sthira Lagna, there will not be any stability. It only means rigidity in that case, not stability. Because it can be both. If you have a Sthirarasi as Lagna in a Muhurta chart, it can be stability as well as it can be just rigidity. Maybe you will be very rigid, very stubborn like Mars, and then maybe it will lead to problems. So you can't apply thumb rules. This is one thumb rule. But the thing is, you also have to look at the chart and look at what planets are in Lagna and what planets are influencing it. And what do I mean by influence? We'll see before today ends. One kind of influence is Graha Drishti, and another kind of influence is Rashi Drishti. Now let me define Rashi Drishti. And before I define Rashi Drishti, actually I have to mention another thing. The Trimurtis, the three Devas who rule the world, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, they are given rulership over these Rasis. All the Chararasis are ruled by Brahma. All the Sthirarasis, so Chara is Brahma, the creator. Sthira is Vishnu or Shiva? Take a guess. Why?
He maintains.
For me? He doesn't cause Sthiti. He causes you to move. He causes you to do things. He's the Karaka for sustenance. And sustenance doesn't happen when you stay still. When do you stay still? When does somebody become Sthira? When he dies. When you die, then you get the stability of that non-moving nature. So it is Shiva. Of course, it can also mean moksha. That is also stability. That is the ultimate Sthira. That is only temporary Sthira. So, for me, you are complaining about what Trimurtis got. I am not the right person to complain.
Stability, good things. Vishnu is given all good ranks
and Vishnu Hava dually Vishnu.
I guess at the subconscious level we need to get rid of the fact that Shiva destruction, Shiva destruction. It has to. We have to, go towards inviting Shiva and the destroyer of the evil within us. Not
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said in the other class, he destroys the tamas. He destroys the tamas within you. Okay, so Chararasis are ruled by Brahma, Sthirarasis by Shiva, and Vishwamarasis by Vishnu. And again, what it means, we'll come to it later. And now let's come to the aspect part of it. So, like I said, certain Rasis aspect certain other Rasis based on their placement and position. And any planet in that Rasi will aspect those other Rasis. For example, the rule says, if you look at the sheet that you have, first let's see jewel Rasis because those are easy. All jewel signs aspect all other jewel signs. That's the rule. So what it means is, if you have Gemini, let's say there is Mars in Gemini. There is a particular planet. Let's say Mars is in Gemini. Okay. Let's say Mars is in Gemini. Then he will aspect Virgo, Sagittarius and Pisces. All other dual rasis are aspected by each dual rasi and planets in it. So any planet in a dual rasi will aspect all other dual signs. And this aspect is not about desire. Does Mars in Gemini want to do something about these houses? He may or may not. It's not about the desire of the planet. It only means Mars has an influence on those houses. He is in a position to do certain things for those houses. Does he want to do it or not? We'll see later how to judge that. But he is in a position to do certain things for those houses. And then, so dual rasis aspect each other, and then chara rasis, they aspect sthira rasis, and sthira rasis aspect chara rasis. That's the rule. It's mutual. Chara rasis basically want to see sthira rasis, and sthira rasis want to see chara rasis. And the exception to the rule is, a rasi cannot aspect another rasi which is adjacent to it. So if you take this chara rasi for example, let's take this. Being a chara rasi, it will aspect the sthira rasis. That means it will aspect this and this, right? But the exception is adjacent rasis cannot be aspected. They are just too close, so you cannot see them. So this is not aspected. So this and this are aspected. So what are the rasis aspected by Mesha? Simha, Vrishchika and Kumbha. Okay. Now actually just a note on Sanskrit pronunciation. This rasi is called Simha, right?
Yeah.
Today most of us pronounce it as Simha. But the thing is, the Anunasika Ma, it comes after Pa, Pha, Ba, Bha. See, for example, if you learn Sanskrit letters, you learn that Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha. They have this Nga, this Nga. This Anunasika as the Anunasika. So if you for example have Anka, a word called Anka, like in Sashanka, this dot, this Anunasika basically is pronounced like this sound. It's not Amka or Anka. This is Anka. And similarly, Cha, Ja, Jha, and okay. That is how Telugu people pronounce it. But I mean, it's tough to pronounce by itself. We can pronounce it when it comes after any of these four letters. For example, if you have Manjari, let's say, it's not Manjari or Mamjari. It is Manjari. That sound that came when I said Manjari, the sound that came between Ma and Ja, that is the correct sound of this. So we all know how to pronounce these things. But we don't realize that each Anunasika is limited to those four consonants. So similarly, Ta, Tha, Da, Dha, Tatha, Dadha, Na. This is one group, Ta group. So for these four consonants, Na is the Anunasika. So if you have, for example, Anta, it's not Amta, but it is Anta. If you write A and then dot and Ta, this dot basically has the sound of Na. This is Anta. So similarly, Ma is limited, strictly limited to Pa, Pha, Papha, Babha, Ma. So Papha, Babha, Ma. This is the Varga. So if you have, for example, Amba, if you write like this, it's basically not Anba but Amba. You pronounce Ma. Now the thing is, for Ya, Ra, La, Va, Sha, Sha, Sa, Ha, there is no Anunasika. And the Vedic way, the old ancient way is, when you write, for example, Simha, this is neither Ma nor Na. This is just dot. And the correct Anunasika before Ha is, before Sasha Saha, Yara Lava, Sasha Saha, used to be in old days, it used to be this one. Back after all the four are done, you go back to this one. So, if you have Simha, basically the correct pronunciation is, think as if you are going to pronounce Singa. And then when you say Sing, just before you are about to say Ga, instead of saying Ga, say Ha. Otherwise you will just end up saying Simha. So the correct pronunciation is Simha. That's why some old people also say, instead of Simhasan, especially in the northern parts of India, they say Singhasan. That's because they want to say it the right way, but they end up saying Ga also. Instead of saying Simhasan, they say Singhasan. But it's not really, you can't say that is wrong because Simha is wrong too. Both are wrong. It's tough to judge which is more wrong, which is less wrong. So this is the way. And also when you look at mantras, when you look at Vedic mantras, this is actually, if you read in Sanskrit language, some people write, there's a special symbol. Let me write Telugu. In Telugu, if you for example want to write Simha, for example, Tanno Narasimha Prachodayat, Narasimha, you will see it written as Sigumha.
Yeah.
And writing in Telugu, those of you who can't read Telugu, just ignore it. They write C and then G and then an Ananasika. What this means is the Ananasika that comes before Ga. That is basically, that used to be the old coded way of mentioning it. But what ended up happening is, people just pronounce it as G. And they don't even say Sig, they say Sigu. So this is pronounced as Sigumha. So Narasigumha Prachodaya, that is how lot of 95% of the priests in Andhra, not just Andhra, in several South Indian, yeah, exactly. Gananantva Ganapatikum Havamahe. That is supposed to be Ganapatim Havamahe. That when Ganapatim is one word, Havamahe is one word. When you do Sandhi, when they come together, it becomes Ganapatim Havamahe. But that Sunna in Telugu or the dot, that becomes the Annasika in the Kavarga. So it is Ganapatim Havamahe. Gananantva Ganapatim Havamahe. Unfortunately, so many priests read it as Ganapatikum Havamahe. That breaks the chandas, the meter, that breaks the meaning, but that is how people do it. But in any case, my point was, instead of saying Simha, try to say Simha. Simha. Just try to say. You may not get it right the first time, but if you keep trying, you will get it right, because that is the only right way. Simha is only a corrupted, modern Kali Yuga corruption. Now, going back to the aspects, I will ask you one Rasi, and one of you has to volunteer and tell me the Rasi is affected by it, okay? Pisces. Pisces is this sign. Which are the Rasis affected by Pisces? Can somebody answer? Who volunteers? Okay. Somebody else I want. Who volunteers? Okay, please go ahead.
The aspect of Taurus?
No.
Why Taurus? First here the Rasi I asked is dual or fixed or?
Dual. So he'll aspect all three others.
All three others. What are they?
Gemini, Virgo and
Sagittarius. So those are the three signs aspected by Pisces. Now somebody else. What are the signs aspected by Aquarius? That is this Rasi. Okay, go ahead.
Capricorn? No.
That is adjacent. Okay, so what else? One second. Why Taurus? This is Thira, right? So this will aspect other Chararasis. Chararasis aspect Chararasis, Chararasis aspect Thirarasis, and Disvabha Rasis aspect Disvabha Rasis. So, okay, it will aspect Cancer. What about Aries? Aries, Libra. So these are the three signs aspected by Aquarius. What about Vrishchika? Can somebody answer for Vrishchika? What are the signs aspected by Vrishchika or Scorpio?
Capricorn?
Aries, yes. Cancer, is it aspected?
Yes.
Libra, what about Libra? No, why? Adjacent, too close. And then what about Makara? Makara is aspected. So these are the three signs aspected by Scorpio. Now let's go to a Chararasi. What are the signs aspected by Tula? Sinha, Rishabha,
And
Kumbha. So these are the three signs aspected by Tula. Now, Makara. What are the houses aspected by, Rasis aspected by Makara?
Vrishchika,
Makara aspects, yes, Vrishchika, Sinha, Rishabha. Perfect. So does everybody understand how you do this? The only thing is if you engage in a little bit of practice, it will just happen so naturally. When you look at a horoscope, you will see which planets are aspecting which houses. And then there is something known as Argala. Does anybody know the literal meaning of Argala in Sanskrit, in Sanskrita? Argala. Does anybody know what Argala means in Sanskrit?
Anargala means it's like a flow, right?
Excellent guess, but that's not the actual meaning. Good. In Telugu, if somebody is speaking anargalanga, that means without any break, continuously, smoothly flowing speech. So there is an expression called anargala speech. So from that he gets that argala means break. The good guess, very good guess. The literal meaning, if you look at Sanskrit dictionaries, the literal meaning is the bolt that you put on a door. Basically the bolt on a door. So that is why you say anargala speech means without any basically bolts basically put on it. That means free and open. Okay, so what this argala means is, the meaning says bolt. So what this means is, this is something that will lock certain aspect of a house. Any planet who has argala on a particular house will lock certain aspect of it. Will just put a bolt on certain aspect of it, which means this is actually in modern English text on astrology. This is translated as intervention. Argala is translated as intervention, but basically this is a conclusive intervention. A planet intervenes in the matters of a house and decides a particular aspect of it firmly. Just like you are putting a bolt on a room, you decide for that room. Each house is basically like a room. You just put a bolt on that room. You just take control of that room. So planets with argala take control. Similarly, I said that planets with grahadrishti, they have a desire. Whether they can do something about that house or not, God knows. But it is only desire. Planets with grahadrishti have a desire. Planets with rasidrishti, they have an influence on that house matters. But whether that influence is small or big or conclusive, we don't know. But they have certain influence. But it may not be a very important influence. Sometimes it can be. But it is just an influence. But argala is something that is very conclusive. Any planet with argala on a house, it will give results relating to that house. And how do you see argala? The rule is, from the house, count the second house, fourth house, and 11th house. Those planets in those houses, they cause argala. They intervene in the matters of that house. And then finalize something conclusively. So let's go back to Lord Sri Ramachandra's chart. Okay. Does anybody remember where Lagna is? Ascendant is here, Moon, Jupiter, and he has exalted planets in all four quadrants. Sun exalted here, Mars exalted here, Saturn exalted here, and then Venus exalted here. So 5 planets in Ucha. That is what Maharshi Valmiki wrote in Ramayana. And then
Ketu and Buddha in Rahu in
actually 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Okay, now let's just take Lagna. What are the planets who have argala on Lagna? So Lagna is here, right?
Yeah.
I'll use a different color. Just spoiling the chart. So this is Lagna, right? We want to see argala on this house. So how do you see argala? You just count the 2nd, 4th and 11th houses. Where is the second house? Here. So this house has an argala. There is no planet. So no planet has second house argala. 3 and 4.
Saturn has an argala.
So Shani has an argala. And then, where is the 11th house? You can, if you want to count the 11th house, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. But an easier way would be to go backwards. This will be the 12th house. So go back 11. So this is the 11th house. So these are the 3 houses. So only Shani has argala on Lagna. Sri Ramachandra's Lagna has argala only by Shani. Now let's take the 9th house of Dharma, and see who have argala on that. I will mark that. I will mark it with red. So let's take the 9th house in his horoscope. This is the 9th because this is 12, 11, 10 and 9. The 9th house is Pisces. So that is his dharma. Lagna is basically his self. First we saw the Argala and Lagna. Lagna means his self, his body, his physical body, physical existence. Only Shani has Argala on it. What does it mean? What does Shani stand for?
Hard work.
He stands for hard work, suffering, etc. So because of Shani's Argala, especially you will, okay, actually you know which houses does Shani own? These two houses, right?
Yeah.
What are the houses Shani owns? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 7 and 8 are the houses that Shani owns. And out of those, do you remember what 8th house was called? It is part of the Moksha Trikona. And I told you that 6, 8 and 12 are called Dusthanas. Do you remember? They are the bad houses. So, if the Lord of a bad house, if he is strong, that is bad. Lord of a bad house should be weak. Lord of a Dusthana should always be weak. He should be in Nita, not in Mucha. If somebody who wants to give you trouble, he is excited, that means you have trouble. On the other hand, if somebody who wants to give you trouble, he is so sad. Because I said debilitation. He is akin to being depressed. At a party, at a depressing party, at a party that you hate being. So if the Dusthana Lord is debilitated or in Nicha, he will be so depressed that he is not able to give you trouble, which is a good thing for you. But if the Dusthana Lord is exalted or in Ucha, that is bad news for you. And here, the 8th Lord, Shani, is he in exaltation? Can you quickly refer your tables and tell me if Shani is exalted here? Is this the Ucha Rasi for Shani?
No.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. Libra.
So Libra, Tula, is the Ucha Rasi for Shani. So Shani is in Ucha. And sometimes people think that so many planets in Ucha is great. I know, I have seen charts where there were 3 planets in Ucha. The person suffered like hell. He suffered anything. He came to US, he got married, and then his wife, she suddenly started hating him, and then he had children. She had lawsuit filed on him. She got hold of all his property, and she said he abused children sexually, which was a lie. And then he could not access his bank accounts, and then finally he gave up. He admitted defeat in the court case. He went back to India and he came again to start his life. And that person had 3 planets in Ucha. So just because you have a lot of planets in Ucha doesn't mean it is good. You have a very, very lucky horoscope. Because a planet in Ucha only means he is excited. But what if a bad guy is excited? That is not a good news. So you have to see what are the houses that different planets own, and based on it you can make a judgment. And here, being the 8th Lord in Ucha, Saturn promises some trouble, some hard work. But does the hard work affect his body? Does he have to physically go through suffering? That you see based on Lagna. Does Saturn have an influence on Lagna? Does he have an influence here?
Yes.
Yes, what is the influence? Argala. So he has an intervention in the affairs of Lagna. So because of it, he has some physical suffering. And can anybody tell me if Shani has Rasi Drishti on this? Does Shani have Rasi Drishti?
No.
Because this is a Chara. So it affects Rasi. So I tell you an easier way to find which Rasis have Rasi Drishti. What you do is, look at this Rasi. If it is a Chara Rasi, that is not a corner Rasi, take the adjacent Rasi. Okay? Take this adjacent Rasi. Now take all the quadrants from it. This and this. All the 4. If you make a rectangle with the Rasi as the base, so you will get and then remove this. So other Rasis will be aspected. So that is an easier way to find the 3 Rasis. They will always form a rectangle. And the base of the rectangle will be the adjacent sign, but it will not be aspected. Other 3 will be aspected. So that is the rule for these in-between signs. If you take...
Chara, Stira, we can just go by that.
Yes, you can go by this rule. For example, let's apply this rule. I applied this rule to... did I do it to... Yeah, I did it to Chara now. Now let's do to Sthira, okay? Let's see which are the signs that this aspect. So if you use the formula, the thumb rule that I mentioned, take this one and make a rectangle with this. Make a square with this, and this. Go every 4 basically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So make this rectangle and then remove this. Because this is adjacent. This is the base of the rectangle or square. Other three are the signs. Are they the right signs? Yes.
Yeah.
So you can use this formula for these two signs, these two signs, these two and these two. For these four signs, corner signs is easy.
Yeah.
It's always the corner signs. Those are the easiest signs. So now, anyway, coming back, Shani does not have Rasi Drishti. If he had Rasi Drishti, that would be bad because, like I said, Rasi Drishti is a permanent influence. If a planet has Rasi Drishti, that means he lives in a house and so he has an influence, permanent influence. Like I said, it may be big or small. That you see based on whether there is Argala also or not, etc. But Rasi Drishti by itself means something that is permanent. So, had Shani had a permanent Rasi Drishti on Lagna, that means irrespective of the dashas, always he will be working hard. But here, luckily, that is not the case. It is only an Argala. So, he has a conclusive intervention which may happen in a particular dasha. So, it is not a lifelong thing. So, the lesson you have to remember is Rasi Drishti is something that is there forever, throughout somebody's life. Argala is something that will happen in a particular dasha or antardasha. Similarly, Graha Drishti. Graha Drishti is desire. That also happens in a particular dasha. It's not there always. So, does Saturn have Graha Drishti on Lagna? Can somebody tell me if Saturn has Graha Drishti? First tell me, what are the houses that Shani has Graha Drishti on? Somebody volunteer and tell me the three houses. Of course, 7, because every planet has 7 Drishti. So, 7th house from Shani. What other houses for Shani? 3rd and 10th. So, let's find what are those houses. What are the houses that Shani has Graha Drishti on? Let's start counting. 1, 2, 3. This one. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh, yes.
So, Shani aspects Rahu, Sun, and then these two planets, Lagna with Moon and Jupiter in it. So, does Shani have a Graha Drishti on Lagna?
Yes.
Yes. Shani has a Graha Drishti on Lagna. Excuse me. What that means is, Shani not only has this conclusive influence to exert, but he has a desire to do that so. Otherwise, if the Argala is there and the desire is not there, the result may not be that strong. But he desires, he wants to influence his Lagna, influence his physical existence. And how does he want to influence it? By giving hardship, because he is the 8th lord. And is this hardship given in a nice and subtle way or in a crude and rude way? In a crude and rude way because Shani is a Krura Graha. If you look at the second class handout, I classify planets as Krura and Saumya Grahas. Saumya Grahas are soft-natured planets. Krura Grahas are cruel-natured planets, rude planets. And then Shani is a cruel Graha. He is a Krura Graha. And even if a Saumya Graha had been the 8th lord, if the Saumya Graha owns the 8th house, the Dusthana, and if he has Argala on your Lagna, still he will give you trouble. But the trouble will be very nicely given. It will not be like a rude awakening. Here, it is a Krura Graha, and he owns Dusthana, and he is exalted. So he is exalted, he wants to give you trouble, he wants to give physical suffering and physical trouble to Sri Rama, and he does it in a cruel way. He doesn't do it in a nice and sweet and gentle way. He's not gentle. There's nothing gentle about Shani's trouble. But the bottom line is, this happens not throughout the life, but in a particular dasha. And there are, when I say dasha, we will learn various dashas as we go along. Maybe after a month, we'll be at a point where we can look at dashas. So there are various dashas. The most popular dasha in Kali Yuga is a dasha called Vimshottari dasha. Vimshottari dasha. Vimshottari means, Vimsha means 20, Uttara means later. Vimshottara means basically 20 later. 20 later 1. When you don't mention what, it means 100. So Vimshottara by default means Vimshottara Sata. That means 20 over 100. That means 120. In Kali Yuga, the Parmaish, they call Parmaish. Parmaish means the supreme length of longevity. The supreme length of longevity of human beings is 120 years in Kali Yuga. It changes from Yuga to Yuga, but in Kali Yuga it is 120 years, actually 120 years, 5 days, according to Shastras. So, there is a dasha that has the length of 120 years. For example, there is a Kesh dasha of 7 years, Shukra dasha of 20 years and so on. When you add all the dashas of the 9 planets, you get 120 years. So based on that dasha, you can say what will happen at what point of time. But Maharshis did not use this dasha for Sri Ramachandra's chart. There is another dasha called Mola dasha which shows the phases in life very crisply. It shows when certain things happen in our life more crisply than even the popular dasha of today. And this dasha was taught by Maharshis as well as Varahamihira and Kalyan Varma. In Varahamihira's Brihajjatakam and Kalyan Varma's Saravadi, they taught this dasha. They actually gave more importance to this dasha than even Vimshottari dasha. But today, if you go to any astrologer in India, 90% of them just look at Vimshottari dasha. But if you look at Sri Ramachandra's chart, we'll do it later. If you find Mola dasha of Sri Ramachandra's chart, you will see that from certain age, Shani dasha comes and this is exactly 14 years. In Vimshottari dasha, the length of each planet dasha is fixed. Shani always has a 19-year dasha. 19, yes. Buddha always has a 17-year dasha and so on. But the beauty with Mola dasha is the length of each dasha varies from person to person. Based on where the planets are in your chart, the length of each dasha will change. So the good phases, bad phases, they are not the same for every person. So if you apply that dasha, you will see that Sri Ramachandra has Shani dasha of 14 years. And it was exactly during those 14 years that he had this physical suffering of Vanavasa. And then another thing, I said Shani has Ardhala on Lagna, so he gives physical suffering. He has Grahadrishti, so he really wants to do that. And I said because he is the 8th Lord, the Dusthana Lord, it is trouble, not good news, basically bad news. That's what I said. And now, where is Shani? Which house is Shani in? Can somebody see what is the house occupied by Shani? Fourth house, right? You know what the fourth house stands for? It stands for comfort, like I said earlier, for gati and comfort. And it also, we'll see later, but it also stands for house, mother, mother and house, and education. Those are the other meanings of the fourth house. So because Shani is in the fourth house, wherever Shani is, he will deprive the person of those particular matters. So he can deprive, during Shani Dasha, he can deprive of a good house, good comfort from house, and comfort from vehicle. He can deprive from those things. On the other hand, let's say Venus was in the fourth house. Venus gives comfort because he is the Karaka for happiness. He stands for happiness and enjoyment. So if he is in the fourth house of happiness, he will give vehicles, he will give houses, he will give happiness. But if Shani is in those houses, he will deprive a person of good home and also good vehicles. So here, because Shani is in the fourth house, he caused physical suffering through Vanavasa or through displacement from house. He caused displacement from the house.
So if you re-examine the period when Rama was separated from Sita again, and Sita went into exile, probably it could be one of these reasons again.
Yeah, the Antardasha will basically be something that will show being separated from wife.
Not really, he was not away from home.
No.
Sita was separated, but he was...
Oh, the second time you are talking about?
Yeah.
It may not be. Saturn also seventh house, right?
Pardon me?
Saturn.
Yeah.
Is also Lord of seventh house.
Yeah.
So maybe his wife also was.
Yeah, actually, there are, like I said, there are Raj Yogas, right? Similarly, there are yogas called Shapa Yogas. There will be curses. If you see anybody's chart, there will be curses. Everybody has curses. Shapa basically means curse. And don't look at it in a negative way. And it doesn't come if you do something bad to somebody in past life and he takes water in his hand and throws it on you and gives a shapa, like they show in movies. If you think that then only shapa comes on you, that is not right. If you make somebody unhappy, or if you make somebody angry, or if you cheat somebody and just disappoint somebody, it will show up in your next life chart as a shapa. Somebody doesn't have to explicitly give you a curse. If you just do something unfair, or sometimes even if you do something fair, but a very, very, very powerful or learned person was offended by it, still it will show up in your chart as a shapa. You just made somebody unhappy, so somebody else will make you unhappy. You have to suffer the consequence of what you did. So there is something called shapa. There are various shapas given in Shastras, especially by Parashara. Matra shapa, which is mother's curse, Pitra shapa, which is father's curse, Matula shapa, which is uncle's curse, and not more importantly, but also importantly, Dara Shapa or Kalasra Shapa Yoga, which is basically wife or husband's curse. So similarly, there are so many curses. And if you look at this chart, one of the curses given by Parasara is Brahmana Sapa Yoga. And that yoga, Brahmana Sapa occurs, Jupiter stands for Brahmana. Why? Like I said earlier, Jupiter is the teacher of gods. If you look at this whole universe, the Parama Purusha, the supreme being, of the supreme being, Jupiter is the intellect. And he is basically the teacher of gods. And I said within us, within each human being, he manifests as the intelligence. But if you look at the whole society, all these meanings that I mentioned can be extrapolated to various levels. We can look at the whole society, because whole society is again a representation of Narayana, this human society in which we live. And in that society, who is the intelligence or the teacher of gods, the Jupiter of the society? It is the learned people of the society, the priests, the religious people, the learned people. So those are represented by Jupiter. When you look at a single person, within him, his intelligence is Jupiter. If you look at the whole universe, the teacher of gods is Jupiter. But if you look at a society, the learned people, the religious people of that society, the priests, etc., those are Jupiter. So Jupiter has so many meanings depending on what is your sample set. Depending on whether you are looking at a society or a kingdom or a person or his family, Jupiter has different meanings within each context. So in the context of society, Jupiter shows intelligent people, basically priestly people. So Jupiter can show Brahmanas, a priest or learned, very learned Brahmana. And the rule is, the Sapa, the formula for Sapa is, if two malefic planets or Krura Grahas have a Graha Drishti on Jupiter, it shows Brahmana Sapa in that chart. If you look at Jupiter, if you see whether two Krura Grahas have a Graha Drishti on Jupiter, it shows Brahmana Sapa. And now, can anybody tell me if Jupiter has Graha Drishti from two Krura Grahas? One Krura Graha we already identified, Saturn. Saturn has the 10th house aspect, the Graha Drishti, the full Graha Drishti of 10th house on Jupiter. So one Krura Graha is covered. Who will tell me the second Krura Graha? Mars. Where is Mars? It's in the 7th from Jupiter. So does Mars aspect this house like Graha Drishti? It does, because every planet aspects the 7th house from it. So Mars will aspect the 7th house from it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Mars has Graha Drishti on Jupiter. So the rule I mentioned is two Krura Grahas having Graha Drishti on Jupiter. That is Brahmana Sapa. So Sri Ramachandra has Brahmana Sapa Yoga because of Mars and Shani. And you know what? The rule also says, if the Krura Graha is Shani, that means you made the Brahmana sad. If the Krura Graha is Mars, you made that Brahmana angry. If the Krura Graha involved is Rahu, you made that Brahmana cheated. He felt cheated. He felt cheated. Rahu shows cheating, Mars shows angering, and Saturn shows saddening. Does Rahu also have a Graha Drishti on Jupiter? No. But Mars and Saturn have Graha Drishti. So what this means is Sri Ramachandra made a Brahmana sad and angry. And I don't know how many of you know the story, but see, there is a story that Narada wanted to marry a woman. It's a long story. I don't want to go through the whole story. But Narada wanted to marry a beautiful woman. And then Vishnu did a magic by which Narada appeared to that woman like a monkey. And then the woman, first she agreed to marry him, but later when she saw him as a monkey, she said, no, I don't want to marry him. She ran away from him. And then Narada felt, so he was very sad that he could not marry. And then he gave a shapa. You will also suffer in your marriage. Your marriage will suffer because of what you did to my marriage. You stopped my marriage, so I curse you. So that's what Narada did. And the story says that because of that curse, Sri Ramachandra had to be separated from his wife in one of the avataras and suffer maritally in one of the avataras. And Rama Avatara was the avatara chosen for that.
Why did Vishnu do that?
Pardon me?
Why did Vishnu do that?
He didn't want Narada to get married and get into trouble. Yeah. He didn't want Narada, a great tapasvi, to get into trouble. He wanted Narada to stay back. So
He paid the price.
He paid the price in Rama Avatara. It happens for good. If somebody has a sapa, don't think that it's bad. That sapa may actually lead to good for the society, or at least for 100 other people. So even if you have a sapa in your life, maybe in your chart, maybe it is for good, maybe something good will come out of it. So never look at sapa as a bad thing. And also if you look at Parasara's classic, there are remedial measures given for each sapa. For Mata Sapa, this is what you have to do. You have to go to Rameshwara or go around the Shivalinga 1,000 times. Like that, for each sapa, he gave certain remedies. So you can go through those remedies given for Brahmana sapa if you have it in your chart, and then do it. And
Other sapas are based on same rule, like two Krura Grahas.
Two Grahas aspecting. Venus will be Karta sapa, Sun will be Pitra sapa, and then Moon will be Mars sapa. So those are the rules. But in the case of father, mother, and wife, also along with the Venus, Sun, and Moon, the Karakas, the house lord also should be afflicted. So the rule is the 7th house has Graha Drishti by at least 1 Krura Graha, 7th lord has Graha Drishti from at least 1 Krura Graha, and Venus has Graha Drishti from at least 2 Krura Graha. So that's the rule. But we will go through other sapas later. Yeah. But because we are seeing Srirama's chart, I just wanted to mention this sapa. Yes?
If you do the remedial measure,
yeah,
then the direct will be removed.
Either removed or lessened.
So even
mitigated.
In the horoscope, it should also be seen that I will do remedial measures, and therefore it will be removed.
Yes, there are actually also combinations that show whether you will be doing remedial measures and when they will work. And also there are dashas. In certain dashas, if you do the remedial measures, they will work better. In certain other dashas, though whatever pujas you do will not give you result. So you can see all those things, and let's not go there now. But suffice to say that there is a Brahmana Sapa Yoga here, and if you do certain remedial measures, it will go away or it will be mitigated. But this is Narada, a really, really powerful Brahmana. And you can see that from here. Jupiter is exalted. Is Jupiter exalted here? Is he in Ucha? Yes, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, if you see the table. So because Jupiter is very strong, this Brahmana, and also Jupiter is with Moon. Remember another thing. Moon and Jupiter being together is a great yoga. It's called Gaja Kesari Yoga. It's a very, very good yoga. Jupiter and Moon being together, actually being in Kendra. Mutual Kendras is the actual yoga. But being together is even stronger, a stronger version of that yoga. If Jupiter and Moon are together, it is Gajakesari Yoga. What that means is, it means some fame. That person will be well known. Pardon me?
Once he has it.
Does he have it? I don't remember. I think he does. He does. Yeah. So this is, so he has Gajakesari Yoga, but the thing is, what that means is, Sri Ramachandra is very popular, very well known. Even after millions of years after he lived, he's still respected by people, worshipped by people. But apart from it, the point I want to make is, because Jupiter is involved in such a good yoga, and he is exalted, and even Moon is in one house. So in this Gajakesari Yoga, both Moon and Jupiter are very strong. One of the two planets, Moon, is in one house, and the other planet, Jupiter, is in Ucha, exaltation. So this is an extremely powerful combination. So because Jupiter is so strong, the Brahmana who gave this curse is a very, 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 very powerful Brahmin. Extremely learned Brahmin. So it was Narada. It wasn't some small Brahmin who was mad at him. It was Narada. It was of the caliber of Narada. So even if he does any pujas, it's very tough to overcome. And the thing is, unless you really want to overcome certain things, you really are troubled by it, it's actually a good thing to just go through that karma. So Sri Ramachandra just became an adarsha for us. He became an ideal by going through the suffering that was inflicted on him because of the sapa. And in any case, the point is, because there is also a sapa given by Shani, this suffering that we identified based on Argala and Grahadrishti, it just becomes manifold. It just becomes 2 times or 3 times more, 2 times or 3 times stronger, because there is also a sapa involved. And another rule given is, if there is a sapa, look at the houses associated with the Krura that are called in sapa. And from those houses, you can identify what is the area of life. in which Shapa will fructify. So if you look at Saturn, for example, what are the houses that Shani is involved with? First, let's see what are the houses he occupies. Shani, what are the houses he occupies? 4th, right? And what are the houses he owns? We saw it earlier, 7th and 8th. And let's see Mars. What are the houses associated with Mars? What are the houses he occupies? This is Saturn and this is Mars. He occupies 7th house because Mars is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Always remember 7th house is the house opposite. It's basically symmetrically placed. So he occupies the 7th house, and what houses does he own? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 5 and 10. So pardon me?
Who owns Mars on 5 and 10?
Mars owns 5 and 10. This is Mars. And he occupies the 7th house. And Shani occupies the 4th house and he aspects 7th and 8th house. So basically the suffering that Sri Ramachandra is given by Shani and Kuja, aspecting Jupiter, that Brahmana Shapa, that suffering is related to first thing 4th house. So house, 7th house, wife, 7th house shows wife. I said earlier that 7th house is the house of desire, right? Marriage is a form of desire. So 7th house also shows spouse. So he owns the 7th house, and you can see actually 7th house is common between the 2 planets. If you look at the 3 houses that Saturn is associated with and the 3 houses that Mars is associated with, what is the house that is common? 7th house. So the main area of life where the suffering is given because of the Shapa of Brahmana is wife. What he?
Even you have a wife.
Yeah, even though he has a wife, he had to live away from her for a significant part of his life. So that's how the Shapa works. So 7th house, 4th house shows house, and then the 5th house shows children, and the 10th house shows 10th house earlier I said is the karma sthana. It is the house of your karma. It is basically the house of career. And in his case, what is his career? Being a king. That is his career. So it basically affected his kingdom. His coronation was delayed. And he was away from children. He was away from wife. So in all these areas, he received the results of the Shapa. But the most important area is the 7th house. 7th house of wife.
But ability, 6th house is ability, right?
Pardon me?
6th house is abilities.
Yeah?
So his abilities are not reduced.
Abilities are not reduced, yes. Now let's see, actually now, coming to that, let's see what kind of abilities he has. Okay? Or actually before abilities, let's see Dharma. Let's first see Dharma. First, Dharma. Dharma is 9th house, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is the house of Dharma. Sri Ramachandra's house of Dharma has exalted Venus. What does Venus show? Pardon me? Desire, and also I said marriage is a manifestation of the desire. So Venus is called Kalatra Karaka or Dara Karaka, which means significator, one who causes wife or husband. So Venus is the one who gives marriage. He is the natural giver of marriage because he wants people to get married and enjoy life. That's what Venus wants. So, but is Venus corrupted? Is he in a bad state or is he in a good state? Pardon me? He's exalted. So, he's exalted in the house of Dharma. The planet of marriage is exalted in the house of Dharma. So, what this means is, Sri Ramachandra will establish, and also another thing, is Pisces, the house where the sign, the Rasi where he is placed, is it a good Rasi or bad Rasi? Why is it a good Rasi? Jupiter owns it. Jupiter owns that Rasi. Had the same Venus been in Aquarius or Capricorn, that is a kind of corruption. Venus shows marriage and attitude towards marriage. And that attitude, it may have a little bit of corruption if Venus is in a house owned by Mars or Shani. But he is in a house owned by Jupiter. And that too, Pisces is considered as a very auspicious sign. Pisces is the sign of Vishnu, Libra is the sign of Shiva, and Cancer is the sign of Brahma. It is said that when creation happened, Cancer was rising. Basically, Cancer is associated with creation. And Pisces is basically If you look at if you look at all the signs in the natural zodiac, they show various body parts of the Kalapurusha. And Aries shows the head, Taurus shows the face, and so on. We'll do that later when we do Rasi more thoroughly. But I will say I'll just say that Pisces shows the feet of Kalapurusha. It is the feet of Kalapurusha or feet of the Paramapurusha. So all the Maharshis, they are basically praying to the feet of the Paramapurusha. If you read Vishnu Gayatri, for example, the mantra says, Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Suraya. What that means is that Vishnu's Paramam Padam, the supreme, absolute feet, Pasyanti, are watching Suraya, learned people. Learned people are watching Vishnu's great, supreme feet. So, when you look at the Paramapurusha or Narayana, it is the feet that you are supposed to look at, especially if you are a learned person, not his face or his chest or somewhere else. So, all the rishis, they are interested only in the feet of Paramatma. So, Pisces is also called the sign of Maharshis, the Rashi of Maharshis. It is the Rashi of supremely Sattvic Dharma. It is a very, very Sattvic sign. So, because the planet of marriage is in a Sattvic sign, and he is excited, he is not sad about being there, he is excited about being there. So, because of that, and moreover, to top it all, he is in the 9th house of Dharma. So, the Dharma that Sri Rama establishes, the Dharma that Sri Rama follows, is relating to marriage. And it's a very Sattvic Dharma. Can anybody say, no, does anybody know what Dharma Sri Rama established relating to marriage? Ekapatni Vrata. So he established the Dharma of having just one wife. In an age when people had many wives.
Even his dad had.
Yeah, his dad had 3 wives. Still he established Ekapatni Vrata. So, that is what his Dharma, Venus being in the Dharma Sthana in his chart shows. And now, what are the other planets having Argala on the Dharma Sthana in his chart? Let's see. What are the houses of Argala? Because we said so many things after defining Argala, probably you forgot. So look at that chart again. 2, 4, 11. So let me mark them. Counting from here, what is the second house?
Sun.
This, right? Aries. Sun is not the second house. Aries is the second house and Sun is in the second house. Now, what is the fourth house? 3, 4. Okay? These are the ones.
So
And then,
taking from there,
pardon me?
you are referencing from Venus?
I'm referencing from Venus. Actually not from Venus, from the 9th house. Because I want to see which planets are intervening in his Dharma. Venus being in the Dharma Sthana, he will clearly have an influence on the Dharma of Sri Rama. But other planets having Argala on that house, they will also influence his Dharma. They have a certain...
Should we be seeing the other way around?
Pardon me?
Like we saw Saturn is in Argala for
Oh, I'm not seeing which house was... I did not, if you remember, I did not start from Saturn. I started from Lagna.
Yeah.
And then I found 2, 4 and 11. I found that Saturn was the only planet.
That's true.
Similarly, like I did for Lagna, I'm doing it for 9th house now.
Oh.
So, just like I saw which planets have Argala and Lagna, and I ended up with Saturn. Similarly, I want to see which planets have Argala on his 9th house. So I am taking this as the reference, just like I took this as the reference. I am taking the 9th house as reference and finding 2, 4 and 11 from it.
So you can establish a graph for every house.
House, yes. And those planets having Argala on that house, they will intervene in that house matters and decide certain things relating to that house. So planets with Argala and Lagna, they only intervene in your physical existence. They can give troubles to body or comforts to body, etc. It's basically body. It doesn't show your Dharma. Your Dharma is 9th house.
That's why you are saying from Venus, second house.
Yeah, from Venus 2nd house, 4th house, and then 11th house is 12, 11. Okay? These are the 3 Argala Sthanas. Now first let's see Sun. Let's see the planets which are really in strength. Sun and Mars are exalted. They are in Ucha. So let's start with Sun. What does the Argala of Sun mean? His Dharma is influenced by Sun. So what does Sun is basically, I said Sun is within a person he is the soul. But if you look at society, he is the king. Sun is the king. And Moon is the minister and so on. Mars is the soldier and so on. To look at the analogy, we started from the Paramapurusha and we said what different planets stood for in the Paramapurusha, and we extrapolated it to each human being. Now you can extrapolate it to a society. A society is also a manifestation of the Paramapurusha. So in the society, the soul is the king. That is why they say kings are basically Narayana. Raja is like Narayana. That is because he is the soul of the kingdom. And then, if you see, for example, Jupiter, like I said, Jupiter is the priest and learned people in the society. And Venus is the entertainers in the society. People who entertain, like film actors, singers, all these people who give enjoyment to the society. Because Venus shows the spirit of enjoyment. And if you look at a society, the entertainers of the society are the spirit of enjoyment of the society. And then, if you take Mars, excuse me, Mars is the spirit of aggression within each person, the spirit of initiative and aggression. So within the society, these are the aggressive people. These are the soldiers, policemen. So within society, each planet represents different things. Within a family, they represent various things. Within a human being, they represent various things. So depending on the context, you can use the same logic to come up with the meanings, or you can just look at the definition in a textbook. So Sun shows king. So he is the Raja of the solar system. So Sun, exalted Sun having Argala on the 9th house shows he has Raja Dharma. He has to follow not only the dharma relating to marriage, establish Ekapatni Vrata, but he has to be a king and he has to follow Raja Dharma, which may sometimes mean, Raja Dharma may mean sacrificing his own comforts for the comforts of the people. So that is Raja Dharma. And who else? Pardon me?
Now the sun is exalted.
He is exalted, right. And who else has Argala and Venus? By the way, so to complete your point, because Sun is exalted, he follows this Raja Dharma very happily. He is not sad about it. If somebody has Nita Sun, having Argala on the 9th house, he may also be a politician. He may follow Raja Dharma, but he may be so sad. He may be so sad that he can't spend time with his wife and children because he has to discharge his duties as a king. He may be sad about it. But here Sun is really strong. He is exalted. So he discharges his duties happily, with excitement. And now, the other planet, another planet who has Argala and Venus is Mars. Mars is Kshatriya Graha. He is basically the fighter. Mars is the fighter. So he has Argala on the 9th house. So does he also have Viradharma apart from Rajadharma? Yes. So another dharma of Sri Ramachandra is to fight and kill bad guys. That is what Mars does. He is in Uchasthana. So again he does it happily. And now, another important point is, when does this happen? Does Sun have a Rashi Drishti on 9th house? No. Does Mars have a Rashi Drishti on Venus? No. So this means discharging Rajadharma and Viradharma. It does not happen all the time in his life. There are certain dashas. When the dasha comes, then he engages in this. In Sri Ramachandra's case, after Shani Dasha, he got Mars Dasha. And Mars Dasha was for 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 minus 1 plus 1, so 4. So it was for about 3 years. There was a period of 3 years when he had Mars Dasha. And basically in that Dasha, he fought with the Danavas, with the demons. And then there was, finally, Sandasha came. And then during Sandasha, he became the king. He went back to Ayodhya with Sita, and he became the king. And that was a very short Dasha. After that, again, trouble started. But during that Dasha, he established Ramarajyam. So, during Sun Dasha, he establishes Rajadharma. During Mars Dasha, he establishes Viradharma. So, like this, if you look at anybody's chart, if you look at the Dharma, if you look at all the Argalas, you will see what Dharmas he will follow. He or she will follow. And if you look at the Dasha, judge the chart in conjunction with Dashas, you will know when what Dharma is followed.
Mercury is Argala, and also that house is aspecting Dharma.
Yes.
Wow. How does that interpret?
Well, it means, it has certain meanings, but unfortunately, first thing is that Dasha did not ever come.
Oh.
But that has a Rashi Drishti. That's a good point. So Mercury and Ketu, they have Rashi Drishti on the 9th house. And they have Agala. What does Mercury show? He shows basically learner, a student, a learner, intelligent person. So Sri Ramachandra, he was a good learner. Wherever he went from Vasishtha he learned. He went to Vishwamitra, who was an enemy of Vasishtha, he learned. Whenever he met a Maharshi, he would just learn from them. So learning is another dharma of Sri Ramachandra. And Ketu is basically Moksha Karaka. What Ketu shows is detachment. Moksha can mean merging with the Paramatma, that is the ultimate meaning. But there are smaller meanings also. It is basically detachment. Ketu shows detachment. Rahu shows attachment. But Ketu shows detachment. So Ketu has Argala as well as Rashi Drishti on the 9th house. So when Rama follows his dharma, whether it is Veera dharma or Vivaha dharma or Karata dharma, whatever dharma he follows it without any detachment. He's not excited about it. He's not so attached. He does it just as his job. He's basically Sthita Prajna. So if Dharmasthana has Argala from Ketu, it shows as Sthita Prajna, because his dharma is having the influence of detachment of Ketu. So that will be a Sthita Prajna, who's not too bothered about things, who does it with a detachment, like a water drop on a lotus leaf. So that is what Ketu's influence shows. And these two influences, they do not happen in a particular dasha. They happen throughout his life. Why? Because there is a Rashi Drishti also.
But isn't Mercury shown in the 3rd house? In this one, actually, is the 3rd house.
Pardon me?
Mercury is shown in the 3rd house. Not in the 4th house.
He's referencing it right from first.
You start from Venus, because we start, actually not Venus, we start from the 9th house, Pisces. Because we want to see what planets are influencing his dharma. And his dharma is seen from the 9th house. So from here we see 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. So we see the planets in 2nd, 4th and 11th houses from there.
I think he's referencing to the first chart.
He's referring to what?
First chart which you gave.
Yeah.
In that Mercury comes in the 3rd house.
Yeah, actually I'm not sure whether he's here or here. I have to check.
No, you corrected it in the next.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's referring to that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, another thing. There is something known as Virodha Argala. That means opposite intervention. So this is, if a planet is intervening in the affairs of a particular planet, another planet may try to spoil it. Undo that involvement. Pardon me?
Whether it is good or bad.
Whether it is good or bad. Now, the rule.
One more. In the notes you mentioned that secondarily from 5th house for Argala.
Yeah, we'll leave it for now.
Okay.
There is also a secondary Argala mentioned by Parashara and Jaimini, which is from the 5th house from the planet, from the house. You take any house, along with 2nd, 4th and 11th, if you take the 5th from there, that also has an Argala. But that is a very secondary Argala. And each of these Argala has a specific meaning, which we will cover later. For now, let's just say that those planets intervene in a particular way. Now, let's see the counter interventions. The counter interventions of planets. Now, the definition is, as you can see here, the planets in 12, 10 and I'll write it here. 12th house planets will cancel the intervention of 2nd house planets. 10th house planets will cancel the intervention of 4th house planets. 3rd house planets will cancel the intervention of 11th house planets. That is the definition. And an easier way to remember this is, basically count the same houses but in the opposite direction, in the wrong direction. Let me show how it works. From here, this is the 2nd house, right? Yeah. So, this one has 2nd house Argala. This has Argala. And then, if you count the 2nd house backwards, 1, 2, this has Virodha Argala. So, on his body and physical existence, if there was a planet here and exerted certain kind of influence, that would be cancelled by any planet in this house. But here there is no planet. But let's take the case where there is a planet. We saw that Saturn has Argala, right? Let me call it A1, B1. So or A2, let me use just the second house Argala and
A4.
so let me call it A4. The fourth house Argala, Shani has on Lagna, right? We saw it earlier and we said because Shani is the Dusthana Lord, because he is in Ucha, he is the exaggerated troublemaker, and then because of his Argala on Lagna, he gives physical suffering. And that physical suffering happens because of displacement from house. Because this is the house of home. And now, if you count the fourth house backwards, 1, 2, 3, 4, who is causing Virodh Argala? Sun. Whatever Argala Saturn has on body, Sun undoes it. And where is Sun placed? In the 10th house of 1, 2, 3, 4. In the 10th house of Kerir. From Lagna he is in the 10th house, but that means Kerir, in the house of Kerir. Sun in the house of Kerir gives Rajya, especially strong Sun. In the case of a politician, if you see a strong Sun in the 10th house, you can guess that it will be a politician, and when Sun's Dasha comes, they will basically get kingdom, or they will be in power. Sun shows power, he is like the soul. So Sun in the 10th house shows, a Kerir, in the house of Kerir shows being a king. So what this means is, whatever physical suffering that he had because of Shani, it will be ended by Sun. So in Shani Dasha the trouble started, and in Sun Dasha he became the king. He returned to Ayodhya, he became king again, and his suffering ended. So like this, you can look at the dharma also. For example, Venus. We said that Sun has Argala on Venus, right? We said that shows Rajadharma. Who cancels it? There is nobody to cancel it. So when he became a king, basically nothing came in the way of discharging his Rajadharma. He just discharged his Rajadharma. Nobody basically stopped him from doing it. And then the Viradharma, when you see this Argala on Venus from Mars, which is the 11th house Argala, the cancellation comes from 11th house in the other direction. So here and here. So it's basically symmetrically placed with respect to that. So again there is nothing. So again there is no intervention there. So Rahu and Ketu always. When Ketu has an Argala, Rahu will try to cause Virodh Argala. It always happens. If it is the fourth house Argala. So here on Dharma, the Argala that Mercury and Ketu cause is is cancelled by Rahu, right? Because they are in the fourth house from Venus, and this guy is in the fourth house in the opposite direction. So Rahu will try to cancel the intervention. He will try to cancel the learning spirit and also the detachment. The detachment Sri Rama has in discharging his dharma. The detachment, Rahu will try to cancel it. But the good thing is Ketu is with another planet. So Ketu will stop it. Ketu will basically prevail. The rule is, if there is an Argala and Virodh Argala, count the number of planets. And then the more the merrier, basically. If there are 3 planets causing Argala and 2 planets causing Virodh Argala, these 3 planets will dominate. That's the thumb rule. Again, thumb rules don't always work. For example, those 2 planets may be enemies. So even though they are working together, they may not be good at working together. So they may fight and destroy each other. That is also possible. But as a thumb rule, let us say that more planets, the more the merrier. And in any case, Mercury and Ketu here, they are friends. They are not enemies. So they are fine.
So when you say something is winning,
Something is?
like
Yeah.
Virodh Argala is winning over the Subha Argala or whatever.
Yeah.
That means the only Virodh Argala will happen, or
Yes, the Argala will be cancelled. It will not happen. In this case, for example, the Argala of Shani and Lagna shows physical suffering, physical discomfort, the bodily suffering. That's what Shani's Argala shows. And what Sun does is, he cancels it. So in Shani's Dasha, he will get physical suffering. And in Sun's Dasha, what Sun does is, he just stops the physical suffering. He just stops whatever whatever results Argala is giving. The Virodh Argala will stop it. And hypothetically, let's say, in somebody's chart, let's say somebody has, let's say this is somebody's Lagna or ascendant. And let's say Venus is here. And let's say Shani is here. Okay? Now, does Venus have Argala on Lagna? He does, because 1, 2, 3, 4. He has the 4th house Argala. Lagna is Cancer, Venus is in Libra. So he has 4th house Argala and Lagna. What would that show? Is Venus a good planet or bad planet? Well, he's in one house. The house of happiness and comfort, the 4th house. So being in that house, Venus will not behave like Saturn. Saturn was the bad guy here. He was the 8th lord in 4th house. But here Venus is 4th lord in one house. So what this means is he will give lot of comfort, nice cars, nice house, nice luxuries. That's what Venus will give in the 4th house. And because of his Argala and Lagna, those comforts are not just lying in your house, but they affect your body. So he will give you the physical enjoyment, physical happiness, and you will enjoy the result of the luxuries that you have with you. Some people may buy a lot of luxurious cars, etc., but they may be always walking, not using the car. But here that is not the case. He has a nice car and he is enjoying it physically. So that's what Venus, Argala and Lagna means. And now, when Venus Dasha comes, it will happen. But when Shani's Dasha or Antardasha comes, when Shani gets control over your life, the counter intervention will work. What that means is, again Saturn is the 8th lord here, so he will give some setbacks, and his car, he may lose his car and house, he may lose money. There can be some setbacks in life, because of which he will not be able to enjoy. That enjoyment he will be robbed of that enjoyment basically. That's what the counter intervention does. It will cancel it may be good result or bad result. The Argala itself may be good or bad. Here it is good. Here, it's called Papa Argala here, because it's a Papa Graha. It's called Shubha Argala here. So Argala itself may be Shubha or Papa. It may be benefit or malefic. And the counter intervention again may be good or bad. Good guy can cancel good guy's work. Bad guy can cancel good guy's work. Bad guy can cancel bad guy's work. Good guy can cancel bad guy's work. So all the 4 possibilities are there with Argala and Vinod Argala. And remember that any Argala, if Rasi Drishti is also there, it is there forever. And if there is only Argala or Graha Drishti, that means the time has to come. It will not happen all the time. The time has to come.
But it won't go simultaneously, right?
Pardon me?
It won't go simultaneously. That something is acting with something like
Both of them cannot happen. Argala and Vinod Argala, only one can happen.
afterwards.
And in this case that I drew, let's say Shani is with some other planets like Mars, etc. Let's say, then Shani will win.
Right.
What that means is, even though Venus is in one house, in the 4th house, having Argala and Lagna, he will not be able to give lot of happiness to the body. But being in the 4th house, he will give cause. The same example I drew, Venus being in the 4th house is blessed, because there is a planet in Mola Trikona, and it's not only one house of Venus, but if you look at the table, Libra is Mola Trikona, that is his office. So if a planet is in office, he will be very beautiful. So he owns the house of vehicles and house and comfort, and he is in one house as well as Mola Trikona. So he will be duty minded about discharging his duty. By his duty, I don't mean the person's duty. I mean Venus's duty, which is to give you cars. So he will give you nice cars, nice home, but will you be able to enjoy it physically? Experience that luxury physically? No. Why? Because the Argala of Venus and Lagna is being obstructed by Shani and other planets. But in the single Shani example that I drew here, it's only one planet. So one planet versus one planet. So there's no clear winner. So the Argala can still work when the Dasha comes. So this is how you judge the horoscope. The important factors are Rasi Drishti, Graha Drishti and Argala. Argala is a conclusive influence. Rasi Drishti is a permanent influence, small or big. And Graha Drishti is a strong desire to give a particular result relating to a house. So these are the meanings. And in addition, I will not cover it today. We will continue through this handout in the next week's class. But there is also something known as Karaka. Karaka literally in Sanskrit means Kru means to do. Karaka means one who gets done. The one who makes it happen. So that's the meaning of Karaka. In English language textbooks today, it is translated as significator, because that is a word used in Western astrology also. So we translate it as significator, but the real meaning of Karaka is doer, or actually getter done, somebody who gets done. Karaka literally means getter done. if that expression is valid.
The causer.
Somebody who gets done.
The causer.
The causer, yeah. The causer. So for each house there is a karaka. I gave the list here and we'll go through the entire list later, but I'll just give you the gist. If you take for example the fourth house, moon is the karaka for that house. Fourth house is the house of happiness, comfort, luxury, etc. And moon is the planet who shows mind. So mind is interested in that happiness. More than intellect. Intellect is not really interested in luxury and happiness, but mind is. So mind is in charge for that particular house. In your particular horoscope, some other planet may own the fourth house. But irrespective of what is your lagna, who owns the fourth house, etc., the causer or the one who gets done, the one who is in charge, that is moon for the fourth house. Similarly, if you look at seventh house of desire and marriage, Venus is the karaka. Because the spirit of enjoyment, that is interested in desire. That wants to give you desire so that you get enjoyment. So Venus, who shows you a spirit of enjoyment, he is in charge of your desire. So similarly, for each house there is a karaka. And the karaka is, I gave the analogy at the bottom of the page. The analogy is, karaka is basically like project manager. So for each house is like a project. The fourth house is the project of being happy. The fifth house is project of being able and being recognized. Sixth house is project of overcoming obstacles. The seventh house is the project of getting desires. So, like that, every house, relating to every house, there is a big project going on. And there are also sub-projects. For example, when you say seventh house, it can be desires. It can be marriage. It can be desires relating to career. You may want to do a business. Or it may be desires relating to marriage. It may be just marriage. So there are so many sub-meanings. So relating to that, there are sub-projects. And for those sub-projects, there are again karakas. So I gave the second table in the latest handout. The first table is the primary Naisargika karakas for each house. These are called Naisargika karakas. Because there are also other karakas known as Chara karakas, Thira karakas and so on. Not so on, those two. Chara karakas and Thira karakas. So there are three kinds of karakas. Naisargika, Chara, Thira. And Naisargika karakas, these are again ruled by the Trimurtis. I will mention it in tomorrow's class. But the bottom line is, these Naisargika karakas exist for each house. There is a primary karaka which is listed in the first table. And in the second table, there are so many different things. Within each house, different meanings. For each, there is a different sub-project manager. So all these karakas are like project manager and lead of a particular area of the project. So those are the analogies. And then house lord is like the group manager. So if these planets are in this house, the lord of this house is like the group manager who has charge over all these planets. He controls what those planets do because they are in his house after all. So the house lord is like the group manager who owns those resources. And then planets with Grahadrishti on a house, they are like people who want to get involved in that project. They like that project for some reason. They want to come and play a role in that project. In the case of Sri Ramachandra, Lagna is, if you take Lagna as a project, what does that project show? Basically the physical existence, physical being, the bodily existence, that is the project. And who has a desire to influence that project? Saturn, the eighth lord, the troublemaker, he has a desire to come and influence. So like that in each chart, for each house, there are various planets having Grahadrishti. So those are analogous to people who want to get involved in a project. Of course, if somebody wants to come and work for you in a project, it's not necessarily good. Sometimes it can be bad. The person may be badly qualified for that project. He may be very, very excited to do that project, but he may be bad in doing that thing. So just because a planet has Grahadrishti doesn't mean it is good. It can be good as well as bad. In this case, it was bad for his Lagna, Shani's Drishti. So planets with Grahadrishti are analogous to people who have a desire to work on a project, and planets with Rasi Drishti, they are like people who have a permanent influence. But that influence can be big or small. For example, if you have a project, a steno or office assistant who types all the mails relating to that project, that Assistant also has a permanent influence on the project, but she may not really matter to the success of the project. So similarly, there may be some Rashi Drishtis which don't really matter. So, but Rashi Drishti is basically like a permanent influence, which is always there. But the desire, if somebody wants to work on a project, when a particular time comes, he may get that person and make him work on that project and then let him go, right? But the office assistant who is always there, she is always there. She is always doing the stuff related to that project. So similarly, Rashi Drishti is analogous to a permanent influence that is always just there. It may be important or it may not be unimportant. It may be unimportant. And then finally, planets with Argala, that is analogous to those who have a crucial role to play in a project. Whether they have a desire to do it or not, there are certain guys who are needed for that project. If you are doing a particular project in your office, maybe you are designing a hardware, and the whole project may be actually coming up with the right architecture and so on. But finally, when you want to tape out the chip, the guy who does the physical design of the chip, he must work on that project, whether he desires to work on it or not, whether he has a permanently, he is involved in that project, attending all the meetings or not, irrespective of it. Finally, when the tape out happens, he has to come and do the physical design for you, for that chip, if you are designing a chip in your company. So similarly, planets with Argala are those who have a crucial role to play. They have a role to play. When they will play, how they will play, that all depends on other factors. When depends on the dashas, how depends on what houses they own, what is their agenda. So depending on that, what kind of role they play is decided. If the guy who has to do physical design for your chip at your semiconductor company, if he is planning to leave the company, and if he doesn't care about what he does at this particular company, if he just gave up on this company, he may do a mess, he may make a mess, he may work on this for a couple of months, he may make a mess and he may leave. So similarly, just because a planet has Argala doesn't mean the planet will do good job. The planet can do good job or bad job. Just like Shani did a bad job for Lagna here. He gave physical suffering instead of giving physical well-being. He gave suffering. So similarly, planets with Argala are analogous to those who have a very definitive role, very well-defined role to play in a particular project. So this is the analogy. And now, if you work at any company in US, you will know that just because somebody has a crucial role to play, or somebody has a desire to do something, doesn't mean things will get done very easily because there's so much politics. So your manager, the group manager, if he doesn't get along with a particular project manager, he will stop you from working for him. But if you like that person, if he is your friend, if your friend is project leader for a project, you may want to rescue him. And then you may certainly try to influence your group manager to go and work for him. And if all are friends, if you are a friend of the project manager and your group manager is a friend of project manager, things are great. You will go and do whatever you have to do. But if you are a friend of the project manager, but your manager is not, he's a worst enemy, that's the Adhisatru. Your manager is Adhisatru of the project manager of a particular project, he will just try to stop you like a Saindhava. You will not be able to go. When will you be able to go? When say comes, when your time comes, which means your dasha comes, Antardasha. The Antardasha, dasha of that planet who wants to work comes. So like this, you can look at the real life analogy of this project management that I mentioned, and that will help you to a large extent in understanding what different planets are doing in two different houses in a chart. And we will go through more examples and make this idea clearer in the next class. So with that, I will end for today. I will actually give you a small exercise. You may or may not be able to do it, but just try to do it. The exercise will be, take Sri Ramachandra's chart. Okay? Take Sri Ramachandra's chart. I looked at the Dharma Sthana, right? Now look at the Karma Sthana. Dharma is basically what he is supposed to do, his duty. But Karma is actually what he did. So look at his Karma Sthana, 10th house, and see what are the Rashi Drishtis on it, what are the Graha Drishtis on it, and what are the Argalas on it. And then based on it, try to understand what kind of karma he performed in a society. Yeah, Arkada, Virodha Arkada, yes. So use all these, but don't use this project manager analogy I gave on the friendship, based on the relationship, how things work. Don't use that yet. But just whatever analysis we did, try to do it for the karma sthana. And then we will do it at the beginning of next class. I'll ask one of you to give your thoughts, and then we'll go from there. We can develop from there. So we will continue this judgment of different houses. This is a very important aspect, and we'll continue this for a couple of other classes before going on into Arudha Padas and other concepts. So with that, I will end for today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Are you able to download those classes?
Yes, actually, Keshu Garu